Our project focuses on homelessness in South Florida through the See, Judge, Act method. This means we will first look at what is actually happening in our community, then judge why is it unjust through Catholic social teaching, and finally explain what is being done and how we can respond. We all have witnessed homelessness in each and every day of our lives. You might be on your way to school, the beach, a restaurant, or a shopping center, and you see someone sleeping on a bench, under a bridge, or sitting at an intersection asking for help. Sometimes they are even holding a sign. Sometimes they have bags with everything they own besides them. Sometimes they are just sitting quietly while everyone else drives past. For many of us, this has become normal. We see it so often that we almost stop noticing it, but homelessness should never become something we ignore. Every person we see on the street is a human, with dignity, a story, and a life that matters. Homelessness in South Florida is a growing crisis. In Fort Lauderdale alone, there are about 615 people experiencing homelessness, and nearly half of them are living completely unsheltered. That means they are not sleeping in a shelter or temporary housing. They are sleeping outside, exposed to heat, rain, storms, sickness, violence, and unsafe conditions. Across Broward County, the numbers are even more serious. Estimates show over 1,500 to 1,700 people living on the streets, along with hundreds more staying in shelters. These numbers remind us that homelessness is not just something we see once in a while. It is a major issue in our own community. The problem is only getting worse, and factors like rent, raising 45% in the past 3 years, make it almost impossible to afford. Another important part of this issue is something called hidden homelessness. In Miami-Dade County, about 66,000 people are living doubled up, meaning they are staying with friends or family because they cannot afford their own place. They may not be sleeping outside, but they also don't have stable housing. This shows that homelessness is way bigger than what we see on sidewalks or at intersections. We also have to recognize who is affected by this. In South Florida, one of the fastest growing groups experiencing homelessness is senior citizens. Many older adults work their whole lives, but now live on fixed incomes that cannot keep up with rent, medical bills, and daily expenses. Families, veterans, full-time workers, people with disabilities, and young people can also experience homelessness. When we truly see homelessness, we realize it is not just one type of person, and it's not always caused by one bad choice. It is connected to poverty, housing costs, health problems, job loss, family struggles, lack of support, and many other reasons. And this issue is not only local. Across the world, millions of people lack stable housing. Some live in slums without clean water or safe shelter, while others live in wealthier cities, but still have no place to call home. Homelessness is not rare. It is happening in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Broward County, across Florida, and around the world. It is everywhere, and it is growing. Most importantly, it involves real people who deserve to be seen, respected, and helped.
Now that we see the reality of homelessness in South Florida, we have to ask a direct question. Is this acceptable? The answer is no, because a society that allows people to live without shelter while resources exist around them reflects a failure in priorities, not a lack of capability. When individuals sleep on sidewalks next to vacant units, the issue stops being invisible and becomes a clear moral contradiction. Every person holds inherent dignity, which means access to basic needs such as housing, food, and safety should not depend on luck or circumstance. Yet across Miami and Fort Lauderdale, people face daily instability while high-end developments continue to expand, showing a system that rewards profit while neglecting basic survival needs. This gap between what exists and who can access it defines the injustice around us. Catholic social teaching emphasizes two key principles: the dignity of the human person and the preferential option for the poor, which calls society to place its focus on those most at risk. Right now, that standard is not being met because policies and economic structures fail to protect people who lack financial stability. When survival becomes uncertain for working individuals, the system itself requires evaluation. Consider the numbers. In Florida, there are only about 23 affordable housing units available for every 100 low-income renters, which means the majority of people who need housing cannot access it even if they are employed. This imbalance removes the idea that homelessness results only from personal choices and instead points to structural barriers that limit opportunity and stability. Homelessness is often reduced to individual responsibility, but the reality shows a broader pattern shaped by rising living costs, limited healthcare access, and gaps in mental health support. In addition, laws that restrict sleeping in public spaces attempt to reduce visibility rather than solve underlying issues, shifting the problem instead of addressing its cause. When we evaluate the situation honestly, the conclusion is direct. Homelessness is not simply unfortunate. It reflects a system that fails to protect human dignity at a basic level.
After seeing the issue of homelessness and judging why it exists, the next step is to act. In South Florida, there are already efforts being made to address this problem. Cities like Fort Lauderdale have expanded outreach teams. These teams go directly into communities to connect people experiencing homelessness with important resources like shelters, healthcare, and job assistance. Instead of waiting for people to ask for help, they actively bring support to them. There also have been real successes. In parts of Miami-Dade County, leaders have worked towards something called functional zero. This means they have nearly eliminated long-term homelessness for certain groups of people, like veterans. That's important because it proves homelessness isn't an unsolvable issue. Progress is possible with the right strategy. One of the most effective strategies being used today is called the housing first approach. This approach focuses on giving people stable housing before anything else. Instead of requiring someone to find a job or overcome personal challenges first, it starts by providing a safe place to live. Research shows that once people have housing, they are much more likely to find jobs, improve their mental health, and regain stability in their lives. Across South Florida, local organizations play a huge role in this effort. They provide emergency shelters for immediate safety, food programs for those struggling to eat, job training to help with those become financially independent, and mental health services for those dealing with trauma or illness. However, there are still major challenges. Many shelters are full, and some people choose not to stay in them because of the strict rules or concerns about safety. This shows that while progress is being made, more work still needs to be done. That's where we can come in. There are many ways individuals can take action. Volunteering at shelters or food banks can directly help people in need. Donating clothes, food, or money can support organizations that are already making a difference. Raising awareness, whether through social media or conversations, helps others understand the issue. Also, advocating for affordable housing policies can push leaders to create long-term solutions. Even smaller actions matter. Treating people experiencing homelessness with respect and dignity make a real impact. It reminds them that they are seen, valued, and not forgotten. Looking beyond South Florida, countries that invest heavily in housing and social services have seen major reductions in homelessness. This shows us something important. It shows that homelessness is not impossible to solve, but it requires commitment, effort, and compassion from everyone. If we all take part, even in small ways, we can help create a real change.
Homelessness is a complex and deeply rooted issue, but the See Judge Act framework gives us a clear and meaningful way to respond, not just with awareness, but with purpose. First, we see the reality. In South Florida and across the world, thousands of individuals and families are struggling every day without stable housing. It is happening here in Fort Lauderdale. It is happening in Plantation, Miami, Coral Springs, Parkland, Boca. It is happening in communities all over the world. Homelessness is not someone else's problem, it's our problem. So the next time you see someone experiencing homelessness, don't just look away. See them not as a problem, but as a person. Recognize their dignity, their humanity, and their story. And then ask yourself, what role can I play in creating a change? Because real change doesn't begin with policies alone. It begins with people. It begins with awareness, with compassion, and with the decision to act. And that choice is solely ours.
Hi, My name is Neil, and I live here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and was contacted by a group of seniors from St. Thomas Aquinas asking if I'd be willing to share some perspectives, insights into what I do and why I do it pertaining to the unhoused in homeless sectors and communities here in the United States. So I have worked for and volunteered for various charities and nonprofits, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, as well as governmental entities during my decade-plus work in this area, from Boston to Philadelphia to Baltimore, and now here. And there's a really buzz statistic going around right now stemming from a report out of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development that shows an almost 20% increase in people experiencing homelessness here in the United States year over year, from 2023 to 2024. And that itself is a key indicator of a crisis. It is something that is untenable and requires significant intervention at local, state, and federal levels. And contrary to what popular belief might indicate, that people experiencing homelessness or who are unhoused do so because of their own fault, really the key driver in today's economy is unaffordable housing. The lack of accessible and affordable housing in major urban areas, which is where I have spent a majority of my career, prices people out of their homes. The average American right now is about 1 to 2 paychecks away from experiencing homelessness. And this includes interruptions to work, such as a prolonged illness, unforeseen circumstances, such as a cracked rim on your car, popped tire, a leaky roof. Really, a myriad of factors can result in a financial predicament that results in people experiencing homelessness or becoming unhoused. We currently today, in this financial reality that we're living in, see the lowest rate of savings among Americans in years. So a little accident, something unfortunate, an unforeseen expense can have serious deleterious effects on the lives of your friends, loved ones, or neighbors. There isn't like a stereotypical individual that is more susceptible to experiencing homelessness than another. That is a major mischaracterization that definitely results and deserves clarifying. There are here in the States, under the umbrella of homelessness, 2 categories. There are those that are sheltered, people that are in temporary housing that might be living in a shelter during the day or overnight, and those that are unsheltered, people that are maybe in a tent, an encampment, living on the street, or even in their car. Statistics vary based on percentages of individuals experiencing both. A majority of individuals, though, roughly 60 to 70% on any given day, are in the unsheltered category. A really awesome statistic that is actually coming out of another federal governmental agency is from the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. This stat demonstrates intentional, concentrated, and financial efforts to confront and combat homelessness in a specific population does have demonstrable results. So the Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, initiated a federally funded program to target veterans experiencing homelessness. And over the multi-year program, intentional resources, outreach, and efforts has resulted in about like a 7 or 8% decrease in vets experiencing homelessness. this really does show that funding and financing outreach, intervention, mitigation, and prevention efforts, as well as allocating resources to identifying housing alternatives for veterans on the streets, is beneficial and worthwhile, and could also be applied to other communities that experience homelessness at higher incident rates as well. One of the populations that I primarily work with are individuals with disabilities. If you experience a disability that impedes your opportunity to earn an income, or if you're working and something unfortunate happens to you and you're no longer able to work, that lack of income can result, as I already mentioned, in experiencing homelessness a lot sooner than you might anticipate. Without a social safety net to support you, your world can be turned upside down literally overnight. There are some really unique topics right now, and I know I only have a few minutes to share all of this, but it's so much information to compress into, a short video. But there are other countries that are toying right now with opportunities to combat and prevent homelessness from even beginning in the first place by providing something what's called a UBI, a universal basic income. There's also communities that are providing free housing communities for those who are homeless and need shelter. There are advanced prevention strategies that have been demonstrated to work when they're advertised. And that's the biggest thing. In the public sector, you don't know what you don't know. So if a program is available and you don't know it exists, how do you know to take advantage of it? So it really is a lot about information sharing, connecting dots and resources, because the homeless crisis in the United States isn't going away anytime soon or overnight. With the current economic realities, we are going to see increased incidence rates of homelessness here. And getting back to doing what I do and why I do it, I first began volunteering with this sector actually while I was making my confirmation. And one of the things that has resonated with me for so long to keep that why at the core of doing what I do is James 2:15 through 17. So I recommend to all of you seniors that volunteering may have been a part of your academic journey thus far, and that it becomes voluntary as you matriculate out and into whatever pursuits after St. Thomas Aquinas you choose to endeavor. But always remember to help those who can't help themselves. And if you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Best of luck to you all.